Jack Callahan adjusted the truck's mirrors and sighed, feeling the weariness settle on his shoulders. The night was cold and still, and the load was delivered before dawn. The GPS suggested an alternate route, taking Route 77, an abandoned country road that wound through dense forests and isolated hills. Veteran truckers had always known this road well, reporting unexplained disappearances and strange sightings. Jack had never listened to such stories, until now. As he approached the entrance to Route 77, he noticed a thick fog across the asphalt, like a living curtain that seemed to move with an unseen force. Rusted signs announced restricted access and biological hazard, but he sped ahead, convinced that they were just the remains of some old government project. The truck moved slowly, its headlights illuminating the tall, oppressive vegetation on either side of the road. The absence of life was unsettling. No birds, no animals, not even the wind seemed to dare disturb the silence of Route 77. Jack turned up the volume on the radio, trying to dispel his uneasiness, but it only emitted intermittent crackles. Suddenly, a whispering voice emerged from the static, uttering words he couldn't make out. He frowned, adjusting the dial, but the voice disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. As he drove, his eyes caught sight of a figure on the shoulder of the road. It looked like an animal, or at least, something that had once been an animal. Its body was contorted in an unnatural way, and a slimy substance dripped from its twisted skin. Jack swerved quickly, feeling a cold chill run down his spine. The tension in his chest grew as more distorted shapes appeared on the side of the road, some slowly crawling out of the shadows. The truck's engine idled for a moment, and the dashboard lights flickered. Jack swallowed hard, gripping the steering wheel tighter. Something was deeply wrong. He glanced in the rearview mirror and saw for a brief moment a skeletal figure running along the side of the road following his vehicle. The thing's eyes met his in the mirror, making his stomach churn. Jack stepped on the accelerator, trying to shake off the oppressive feeling. The road seemed to stretch on forever, each curve revealing an even denser darkness. Then, on the horizon, he spotted a shadowy structure, partially hidden by the fog. An abandoned-looking building, with the government emblem emblazoned on its peeling facade. Jack's heart hammered in his chest. He felt like he had crossed an invisible line, entering a territory from which he might never escape. Jack kept his eyes fixed on the road, but his mind was stuck on the disturbing sight of that abandoned government building. The dense fog seemed to accumulate around the truck, making the road increasingly claustrophobic. The engine roared irregularly, as if it also felt the weight of the environment. He felt a growing pressure in his chest, as if something invisible was watching his every move. The radio, previously silent, began to emit strange sounds again. Static mixed with incomprehensible murmurs. Jack tried to ignore it, but his blood ran cold when a deep, slurred voice whispered clearly, "You shouldn't be here." He immediately turned off the radio, breathing heavily as he tried to shake off the feeling that he wasn't alone. The vegetation around him seemed to move unnaturally, as if the trees were alive, their twisted branches stretching toward the road. Jack blinked several times, trying to maintain rationality, but he couldn't ignore the feeling that there was something in the middle of that fog. Something lurking. It was then that he saw it. In the middle of the road, a creature stood still. Its body was thin and twisted, its legs thin and joints misaligned, as if it had not been made to walk upright. Its eyes glowed with a strange yellowish hue, fixed on him as if analyzing every detail of his presence. Jack slammed on the brakes. The truck skidded slightly, and for a brief moment, the being moved in convulsive spasms before disappearing into the vegetation. His heart hammered, and he tried to convince himself that it was just a sick deer or something similar, but a voice in his head told him that it was not the case. With a shaky sigh, he accelerated again, determined to get off that road as quickly as possible. The following kilometers were accompanied by a growing sense of paranoia. Jack felt something running alongside the truck, hidden in the shadows of the forest. From time to time, dry noises echoed, as if branches were being broken by heavy feet. He looked in the rearview mirror, but all he could see was the endless darkness behind him. Then, without warning, a loud crash hit the side of the truck. Jack gripped the steering wheel tightly, almost swerving off the road. He quickly turned his face to the side and saw, For a split second, a shapeless, fast silhouette running alongside the vehicle. It moved erratically, almost as if it were twisting in real time. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he tried to maintain speed. He knew he couldn't stop. Not here. Not now. The road seemed to narrow, swallowed by darkness, and Jack felt that every meter he traveled only took him deeper into territory from which there was no return. Jack saw the abandoned building in the distance, an imposing and decaying structure that seemed to have been swallowed by time. The broken windows reflected the little light that the fog allowed to pass through, and the peeling paint revealed corroded metal plates with the unmistakable symbol of the federal government. Something inside him screamed for him to keep driving, but morbid curiosity forced him to stop. He needed to understand what was happening on that damned road. Turning off the engine, Jack got out of the truck, smelling the strong chemical smell in the air, an acrid, metallic odor that burned his nostrils. He clenched his fists and headed toward the building. The metal door creaked as he pushed it open, revealing a long, dark hallway. The sound of his own footsteps echoed off the peeling walls, and the floor was covered in yellowed papers and broken equipment. In the side rooms, Jack found empty cages, some still with claw marks and deep scratches, as if something had tried desperately to escape. He picked up one of the reports scattered on the floor and read it, his hands shaking. Words like genetic experiments, hybridization, and behavioral control appeared repeatedly in the documents, accompanied by disturbing images of creatures that shouldn't exist. Human-animal hybrids, deformed, with extra limbs and eyes that seemed to peer through the paper. A distant clanging sound made him freeze. Something was inside. Jack walked slowly toward the noise, his heart pounding wildly in his ears. He entered a room where old screens still flickered faintly, showing black and white security camera footage. Most of the screens were static, but one showed the exterior of the building, and something was moving among the trees. Something big. Jack swallowed and backed away, but before he could leave, a low roar echoed through the hallways. The sound reverberated off the walls as if the very structure of the building were alive. He ran back to the entrance, his footsteps echoing rapidly across the concrete floor. As he turned a corner, his heart nearly stopped. A grotesque shadow was crawling toward him, its eyes glowing in the darkness. Without a second thought, Jack bolted out the door, racing back to the truck. When he started the engine, he saw the creature emerge from the building, its movements shaky and unnatural, as if it were bending its bones the wrong way. He slammed on the accelerator and sped away, hearing the sound of its claws scraping against the truck's bodywork. The headlights illuminated the road ahead, but Jack knew he wasn't safe. Whatever had been in that lab was now free, and maybe it was after him. Jack sped along Route 77, sweat trickling down the back of his neck as he kept his eyes fixed on the road. The truck rocked violently with every pothole, but he didn't dare slow down. In the rearview mirror, he could see the silhouette of the creature that had escaped from the lab. It ran on 4 misshapen legs, its pale skin shining in the taillights, and its eyes. Those eyes shone like 2 ghostly headlights in the darkness. The winding road seemed to stretch on forever, and Jack knew he couldn't keep up this speed for much longer. He had to find a way out, a place where he could hide, or at least have a chance to confront it. The radio, which had been silent since the last interference, began to emit distorted sounds again, a repetitive sequence of numbers and unsettling whispers. What did they mean? Jack ignored them, concentrating on escaping this aberration. The truck shuddered with another impact. Something had jumped onto the back of it. Jack heard the sound of claws scraping against the bodywork, a sound that made his stomach turn. He glanced in the side mirror and saw a misshapen shape clawing at the bodywork, its jaws opening at an impossible angle. He jerked the steering wheel from side to side, trying to knock the creature off its feet, but it seemed to be holding on like a hungry leech. With his mind in a panic, Jack spotted an old iron bridge ahead. The structure looked rickety, and a desperate plan sprang to mind. He accelerated even more, feeling the engine roar in protest. When he reached the bridge, he slammed the truck into the side, sending the creature crashing violently against the rusty railing. With a high-pitched screech, it plummeted into the river below, disappearing into the dark, turbulent waters. Jack gasped, but he couldn't stop. He kept driving, feeling the momentary relief give way to growing concern. What if there were more of them? He knew the road was unforgiving to the curious. and now that he had trespassed into forbidden territory, he didn't know if he would get out of there alive. Minutes passed and the road seemed to widen, the fog gradually dissipating. Jack saw lights flashing in the distance, a gas station. He didn't think twice and drove to it, pulling over abruptly. He got out of the truck, his legs shaking, and ran into the convenience store. The clerk looked at him in astonishment, but before Jack could say anything, he noticed something strange. In the back of the store, an old TV was broadcasting a local news bulletin. The screen showed blurry images of abandoned vehicles and authorities investigating a secluded area. The text on the screen chilled his blood. New mysterious disappearances on Route 77. Authorities stress that the road has been closed since the 1987 incident. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. He hadn't escaped yet. Jack felt the convenience store spin around him. His heart pounded as the words on the TV screen echoed in his mind. New mysterious disappearances on Route 77. He looked at the clerk, a middle-aged man with a tired look who was watching him with a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Did you come from that road?" the clerk asked in a low tone, as if he was afraid that something or someone might hear him. Jack just nodded, unable to find the words. He wanted to speak, to tell them everything he had seen, but he knew no one would believe him. Who would believe monstrous creatures that came out of a secret government laboratory? "You need to get out of here now," the clerk said, looking out the fogged-up window. They never let anyone get away." These words fell on Jack like a stone. He turned back to the road, feeling an invisible presence hovering in the air. Even standing at that gas station far from Route 77, he knew he wasn't safe. With shaking hands, he grabbed a bottle of water and walked back to the truck. As soon as he closed the door, he felt a chill run down his spine. Something was wrong. The air felt heavier, and the feeling that he was being watched never left him. He started the engine and drove as fast as he could toward the nearest town. The radio was constantly buzzing, emitting the same sequence of numbers and unsettling whispers. He tried to ignore it, but his curiosity got the better of him. He turned the tuning knob, adjusting the frequency until, for a brief moment, a clear voice emerged from the static. "Jack Callahan, you should never have seen what you saw." Jack lost control for a moment, the truck rocking violently on the road. How did they know his name? He took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but it was now clear that something much bigger was going on. As he approached the entrance to a small town, he noticed a black car parked on the side of the road. The same model he had seen parked in front of his house days ago. His instincts screamed at him to turn around, but it was too late. The car's lights came on and he began to follow it. Jack knew he was being hunted. He drove through the narrow streets of the city, trying to lose the vehicle, but it seemed like the car knew his every move. Desperately, he turned into a dead-end street and braked suddenly. The black car stopped a short distance away, its lights blinding the cab of the truck. The car door slowly opened, and a figure dressed in black stepped out, walking toward him with controlled steps. Jack gripped the steering wheel tightly, knowing there was no way to escape. The figure stopped next to the window and, in a cold voice, said, "Mr. Callahan, we'd like to have a talk about what you found on Route 77. Jack felt his body freeze. He knew his life would never be the same again. And if you've made it this far, prove you're not afraid of the unknown. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And remember, on the next turn, terror might be waiting for you. Welcome to Asphalt Horror.